Stay where you are. I've had enough of your judo. There'll be no accidents this time.
You call that an accident?
Here we are again, another bell tolled, another year older, another Christmas period to enjoy, and a packed year of games for all formats, audiences and pockets. Though this year we have seen, in my opinion at least, a reduction of big tech and art pushing games, a continuation of the past few years across all studios and publishers. However, that does not mean we have not enjoyed some incredible treats, great games, graphical wonder and artistic beauty, but we have seen more from smaller independent teams and studios, which is great to see. But with my 10-year running best tech and graphics countdown now, yes, 10 years old, Retro itself, managing to hit you before the year is out this time, and my long-running 40 years of Pixels has grown into its own countdown. This year is up for patrons already. Join up for early access to some excellent retro treats you may have forgotten or missed. So let's get started with our best visuals and art of 2025. At number 8.
There she is!
No, this is a cop-out, or lazy some may say, but it generally is a positive on the quality of Switch 2 games, a small subset at least, that reflect potential in the hardware and software combo of Nvidia and Nintendo, and more so the future of smaller form factor, lower power gaming, which, as I've said before, I feel is something of a growth area at the moment. Metroid Prime 4 does look better than the Switch version, but much of that is due to severe cuts on the antique original to hit 60 FPS. A 30 FPS title on Switch versus 60 or more over 120 would be far less impressive visually, and I've seen people pick this in their best games, and I really don't know why. Fundamentally, RAM and thus texture quality are the lion's share of the reason why it looks better, but I cover more in my full review. Now, the big wins come from Ubisoft and CDP titles, 40 FPS modes, open world, high NPC counts, current gen visuals, including ray tracing and industry-leading DLSS. The quality in docked and handheld mode impressed me significantly in both these games and gives me hope we may see some epic versions on this hardware, but also future handheld hardware yet to be announced. Star Wars Outlaws uses DLSS and ray tracing to deliver a very close match to current gen consoles and PC for under 45 watts, and emphasizes how good DLSS is at 720p base up to 1440p output, which is perfect for small screens and even large ones when docked. As you see here, running at 1440p on a large 4K screen, it looks very stable, and at times more stable than the Series S version. Cyberpunk may be old, but the visual quality, detail, scale and 40 FPS mode exceed what last gen consoles could deliver, and the enhanced Phantom Liberty expansion seals that deal. But Star Wars is the most technically proficient though, offering smooth gameplay, large dense worlds, fast loading, constant streaming and ray traced global illumination lighting, all with minimal sacrifices over PS5, let alone Series S, which it pretty much stands shoulder to shoulder with, aside the full 60 FPS output, but CPU is a drastic reason there, and very different architecture internally. Now I look forward to next year with Doom the Dark Ages, Indiana Jones and, just missing my video here, Assassin's Creed Shadowfall, all reinforcing that Switch 2 and other handhelds yet to come may just impress for years to come. And Cyberpunk and Outlaws are a testament to that, and take the worthy number 8 slot in my list, or at least 9th and 8th if you're being pedantic.
Ooh, look at those two arms swinging around. Disgusting.
Normally, I'd include a best VR title in my list, but for my 7th entry, it has both 2D and VR modes covered in the hauntingly beautiful The Midnight Walk. The independent Swedish team Moon Hood took obvious muse from stop-motion classics of the past, such as Camperwick Green, Bagpuss, and artistically and gothically Tim Burton and Henry Selick. Everything is made physically first. All clay models are digitised, ensuring each finger mark rough material surface is captured, then skinned into models and animated to replicate stop motion, with some mixed results and interpolated moments also. Dynamic light and shadow, deep blues encompassing darkness, elongated and crooked characters that twist and contort with a macabre display and fold before you. The haunting, melancholic yet stunning visuals look real, more so in VR, both on PS5, PSVR 2 and on PC, due to the improved scale and macro observation, although the VR mode is quite bare bones, more so a better seat than anything else. The film-like blend of a stylistic gothic design, animation style, characters, lighting and more look and feel as far away from a modern Unreal Engine 5 game as you would guess, but it is. Highlighting my constant point about engines, tools and artists are not all the same, and an engine does not define a look, result or even style, no matter what many state.
Fire? Hey, I'd almost forgotten how it felt.
It succeeds for me due to its simplistic walking sim style, its narrative driven exposition, wonderful world building, detailed dreamlike world, its haunting, European macabre child's fairy tale with sufficient intrigue to push on to see the story unfold, or the next monster that awaits. The use of real handcrafted clay, wool, sack, wood, stone and more offer a real organic feel to the game, accompanied by the camera work, dynamic lighting, frantic motion and rich encompassing soundscape. Now, obvious inspirations vary. European fairy tales are an obvious one, Beetlejuice, Caroline, The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe and more, and it's certainly not much of a game to play, with its visual flavour and story being its core hook. Puzzles are very simple and often hang on the same three core ideas, light, darkness and fire, but I loved the fact it felt like playing with toys as a kid, in a fantastical yet horrific world, and nothing looked like pixels or polygons, bringing a warmth to that darkness. A triumph of art and style and unique direction for sure, but it made a great experience for me and something new. It certainly could be expanded and improved on, but a game that deserved my number 7 slot, wholeheartedly.
Share your soft fur, and I shall warm you for a spell.
Now, DICE are hardly new to gaming, and certainly PC gaming, which is where Battlefield 6 stands proudest. Pushing high quality graphics, frame rates with low input latency, specifically with Nvidia GPUs, coming off that lackluster BF 2042, the expectations were not high, but the terrible news of Vince Zampala's death marks this place with sadness for his family, friends and all the team involved in delivering this back to basics single player and multiplayer title that ramped up the good and down on the bad areas of the prior games. 64 player limit helps the flow, strain and quality of the multiplayer action, but also gives the scale for future updates. Much better map design, higher fidelity asset quality and rendering, far better and more systemic destruction and physics brings more chaos, excitement and fun from each game. Making a multiplayer online title is a technical challenge in and of itself, and Battlefield has struggled many times even with some of the best in the series, such as Battlefield 4. But here Battlefield 6 did have some early day woes just getting online, but I must commend the team for actually delivering a high quality, high impact and high availability title that didn't struggle all that much considering how many people picked it up near that day one release. Now, the game itself is still exciting right from the off, be it strafing in an Apache helicopter, top gunning a jet, or simply rocket launching a hotel lobby. The chaos, destruction and options bring back a decent level of joy to the franchise that we've not seen since 2013's Battlefield 4. It booked the pressure of ray tracing just for a tick box, which I actually applaud. Now, as a fan of well implemented ray tracing in games, it needs to make sense first and foremost. As I often say, art needs to drive technology, not the other way around. And it needs to add value and most of all make sense. So here, the choice to stick with SSR, shadow maps, SSAO and pre-baked lighting and dynamic lights is the right choice, and visually it looks very, very impressive. Very chaotic, very dynamic and systemic, and visually still very good even though it books any kind of modern ray tracing or even ambient occlusion effects which were in the previous titles. Sometimes the best technology is not what you see on screen or can name on a checklist, but the features that enhance the gameplay choice and fun for all that play it. The focus on great quality, large scale, dynamic and chaotic warfields, great assets and lighting is why Battlefield 6 makes my number 6 tech and graphics of 2025. Not because it's the best in the list, far from it, but because everything worked within it adds value or purpose and little else feels like topping.
best fortuna you got! My word. That is fucking impressive.
Warhorse are a studio that makes games for themselves, the best way in my opinion, then see if the audience exists with the same taste, which they did, in droves. Easily one of my best games of the year list, based on story, humour and historic accuracy alone. Picking up the mantle from CDP and The Witcher 3, and indeed right from the end of the first, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 takes all aspects of the original, which I reviewed and loved back in 2019, and raises everything up across the board. World scale and detail, texture quality, PBR materials, lighting, weather, interaction, character building, storytelling, and it still uses a stunning but sadly ignored CryEngine to deliver an RPG that Henry VIII himself would want to marry, and then quickly behead. As in the prior games, the real-time dynamic time of day and indirect diffuse lighting presents an authentic yet gorgeous looking 15th century Europe to escape to, utilising CryEngine's sparse voxel Ottree global illumination, Svoggy to its friends, similar to Tomorrow Children by voxelising world geometry into simpler chunks which are cone traced via an octree in software, i.e. not requiring hardware acceleration, balancing hierarchy density with frustum distance to ensure performance on a range of hardware, including current-gen consoles and the plethora of PCs. Delivering high-quality, accurate real-time diffuse global illumination, which allied with the excellent materials organic world, you get natural shadow and shade in concave areas as sun beams down from above, then radiosity bounces light and colour onto ceilings, baskets, walls and other surfaces. This grounds everything far more accurately and complements the art, foliage density, architecture, hamlets, etc. within, adding a natural, authentic and period-appropriate visage. The lack of electric lights and only natural or firelight aids the solution and its impact, with some of the most accurate night lighting in games. Using screen space shadows and cascaded shadow maps and an AO pass does solidify most objects and people in the world, but light leak and donating can still occur though in many areas of the game, specifically on character models. Being an in-depth RPG, choice, combat, interaction and exploration are vital, and the historic and real people, locales and world within are well realised and believable. Combat is slow and clunky, but accurately so, as a few kilograms of armour, chainmail, gloves, helmet and sword does slow you down somewhat. The game is funny often and has a genuine British/European charm and culture within it that I absolutely love. But the team have ramped up their motion capture with facial capture now, and cutscenes are where the game looks its best. The in-game dialogue sections are just keyframed with lower light quality, bone rigs and animation quality, and this is the most jarring visual feature, and also that they are 30 FPS even in PS5 Pro because some of them are videos, but the gameplay is 60 even on PS5 and Series X. A small but growing studio, the quality and vastness is very impressive, as is the use of CryEngine, a dying engine now sadly. The main issues are inconsistency in animation, lighting, assets, high highs and low lows effectively, and screen space reflection artifacts that are very egregious at times, texture, shadow and object flicker, pop-in, and the expected glitchiness of such an epic and vast game. A cracking sequel, visually and technically a big step up from the first. It lands 5th on my list and is certainly a prize that a king could be proud of.
You wouldn't want your pride and joy shrinking. Oh, that really shrivels the old ballsack.
This and the next game were the toughest to place, and I feel were split by little more than a fag paper. Ubisoft delivered a gorgeous and technically proficient new entry in the AC series. RT reflections and global illumination really improved the game's visual quality and built on the pre-baked and image-based global illumination in the Decima engine well. Coupled with spline-based hair, improved character models, smoother LOD transitions due to the brand new micro-polygon feature set, much like Nanite from UE5 and Mesh Shaders, Anvil now supports via their own solution. The new procedural destruction also helps systemic play, and, like the ray tracing features, many elements seem to borrow from Massive Entertainment Snowdrop engine, which is never a bad thing for a cross-studio technology, just ask Sony. It certainly looked the part across PC and console, with some drastic increases in material quality, light and shadow attenuation, and just general world accuracy. A big step up on the technical menu, with the PS5 Pro offering the only place on consoles to get ray tracing, global illumination and reflections in the full game, and still offer 30, 40 and 60 FPS choices for all, along with the choice to flip between PSSR and TAAU, with the performance impact it delivers. The feudal Japan setting is well realised, with very large and open landscapes, towns, seaports and more to explore, climb, stealth and kill within. But the accuracy of the period in art and colour tones are not as impressive as its competition this year. Hair and character models are a big increase, and the dynamic nature of weather that causes motion and even wet hair is far superior to that same foe, as is water rendering and physics. It's just a shame it's not used more throughout the title. It runs well on a selection of hardware and PC specs, with even my RTX 4050 laptop able to deliver a Series S-like quality target. And now, even Switch 2 players can join in on the Bushido action. The main reason it was not higher was the inconsistency in the game's visuals, especially those same models during the real-time cutscenes, and a variety of areas, moods, and most of all, due to the amount that is built on near 10-year-old Anvil feature set. I enjoyed many aspects of the game, and dual protagonist is always a good choice, but I wish the team would redesign and rebuild their systemic system to expand on the sheer scale, crowds, and far better AI that Unity promised all those years ago. A worthy number 4, but not the surefire killer it once used to be. Sucker Punch grabbed my number 3 simply due to the mix of art, lighting and cinematography, whilst keeping high performance and low latency, specifically following patch 1.10 enhancements. Technically, AC Shadows pushes more on the feature set, but where Yote wins is in consistency, model quality, cinematics and those performance levels, at least on PS5 and PS5 Pro. Technically, we are firmly in the improve on the base rather than change for change's sake. The first game was incredibly strong with its art direction and romantic presentation of feudal Japan. Mount Yote takes centre stage here, literally, with obvious connotations of Mount Fuji. Like the first game, although not always as successful, it offers long stretching views with wild swaying pampas grass, particle-driven leaves, animals and more. Textures are a big step up, more detailed, crispest on every fabric, katana and face. Character rendering and models have also improved, with materials, light reactions and diffuse across skin, cloth, rock, wood are much better, more so in those ray tracing modes. It builds on the previous preset times of day, blended 24-hour cycle using image-based prosed IBL solution, and this is mixed with shadow map, screen space shadows and ambient occlusion. But the best modes enhance this further with real-time ray trace global illumination, which improves occlusion, sun and moon significantly at times, and less so in others. They build on their IBL weighted probe lighting model to improve light radiosity and reduce light leakage, which is a very common theme in games over the last 2 years, adding more indirect light bounce and colour onto surfaces, and works best shining inside interiors, which bounce light and colour onto characters and scenery alike. Multiple modes offer the full gamut of 30, 40, 60 and even beyond. Each offer excellent image quality, now using FSR 3 on PS5 and PSSR on Pro. The team have excelled with a near perfect balance of high frequency sharpness and stability in the base PS5 performance mode. Performance is solid though, up to 120, with far faster input latency makes the Ray Tracing Pro mode the clear winner here. Cutscenes are often the highlight again though, with some great moments, but never as many as Tsushima. Loading is seamless with fast travel and game fluidity, top tier, frictionless from the off when loading from the game from Dash, and without the first game, it would be a cracking PlayStation 5 title. And it does lean into the PS5 and PS5 Pro benefits by being so seamless in and out, which only seems to be driven by first-party studios. But the first game is its biggest challenger. As good as it is, better in many places, it never manages to escape its shadow, and in some aspects of world cohesion, art, effects and cutscenes, it does not always beat its forebear, and it includes story as well. A great sequel that delivers a gorgeous game, but like many sequels, it does not improve drastically on such a strong original. PC legend in my list in DICE to another. id Software and id Tech need no introduction. Doom the Dark Ages could be an Iron Maiden album cover. It looks that good. With its inherent use of ray tracing and later full path tracing, modern GPUs need apply, ramped up the visual flair and quality with a hell of an upgrade. Sure, the console versions still look and play superbly, but the Path Trace PC version improves on the lighting and accuracy, specifically material quality and occlusion, and game's visual identity, although the cost versus visual benefits can be a hard sell. The path tracing's need for high-end to top-end, mostly Nvidia GPUs again aside, it does not negate the improvements in impact it offers, with high frame rate still part of that scope, although the DLSS balance for performance is more likely to remain above 60 FPS with path tracing on. But beyond the ray tracing, the other areas that deliver increases on previous id Tech engines are the procedural gore system, large open-ended levels, seamless data streaming, destructible scenery, dense geometric enemies, flying sections, exquisite animation, and even hulking kaiju demon scraps, and overall just far bigger scale. It tries to add more gameplay and style options within the level-to-level moments, although not all were successful, but the timing and colour-coded combat did create some great moments in play, which works as well for streamers as us mere games players. The variety of level designs, architecture, art, lighting and style push it higher up my list than the ray tracing and path tracing features, but I would have liked them to go darker, deeper and more Hell on Earth style than the Evil Dead 3 medieval visage we got. But the quality, performance, scalability and visual feature set make it a great second place on my list, but one that is diminished by its own inconsistency, but also other prior titles, such as last year's number 1 The Great Circle, and other non-ray trace titles pipping it to a higher slot. 60 FPS even on Series S with RTGI is commendable, but the image quality is often too big a cost, and no multiplayer or VRR 120 mode on PS5 Pro even feels a big step back from Eternal, which did both. Still a commendable and artistically impressive entry, but nowhere close to the impact the original 2016 reboot delivered.
And you'll of course be traveling with your child. I mean, that's what Lou would want, right? A grand new adventure with Daddy.
Hideo Kojima is not known for understatement, or short cutscenes for that matter, but in his long and illustrious career, he and his equally skilled and talented team have merged cinema, technology and games with varying levels of success. In the sequel to 2019's Death Stranding, he continues the trend of Postman Pat meets The Walking Dead, using and pushing real-time visuals in a stylish, creative and original way. Powered by Guerrilla Games' Decima engine once again, this PlayStation 5 exclusive, for now at least, continues the clear aim of photorealistic environments and digital actors. He and his team started back with the original Metal Gear Solid, but certainly pushed even further forward with Metal Gear Solid 5. From a visuals and art design, they remain in the less is more approach, focusing the core resources to the things that matter, with many areas being of simple colour maps, limited polygon count such as medical desks, clinical white walls, sheets, military bunkers, dorms, walls, and outside the same level of balance is struck. But here, the terrain and scale is ramped up enormously over the interiors, juxtaposing the previously huge characters front and centre as tiny little pawns in this vast and stretching world. Photogrammetry scans form a large portion of the game's ID, with photorealistic scenery that manages to convince you are watching video footage. The opening section is a phenomenal demonstration of maximising your budget and focusing on the core areas of aesthetics to achieve one of the most convincing moments in games, where you are unsure if this is all real time, which it is. The reasons are those real-world digitized materials in rock, bark, moss, the lighting being fixed on high sun, clear sky and top-tier film quality, physically based material reactions they pioneered with that same Fox engine. The bright light, GI bounce, deep and stable shadows and ambient occlusion give everything a solidity, consistency and accuracy that could be a scene from Lawrence of Arabia or Tatooine from Star Wars. They mix cascaded shadow maps with screen space shadows and ambient occlusion. Lighting is both real-time and dynamic, with outdoors being lit by sun or moon, but also man-made lights from spotlights that use area lights and soft feathered shadow casters. But this is not new. Even Metal Gear Solid had these areas, but they do mix up the shadow casting light sources from the sun and moon, making characters very sharp and clear, almost emulating a penumbra and soft feather contact hardening, with any other shadows such as trees and leaves all being more feathered and softer, but it still convinces and gives a more accurate representation of real light in the real world.
What in the world is this place?
The game's core visuals also rely on real-time global illumination that allows light irradiance and bounce outside on sand rocks, but also reaches into garages, tents and buildings, with an accurate GI that bleeds inside and diffuses across floors, walls and ceilings, complemented by the same AO to deliver convincing contact shadows and occlusion in real time without the need for expensive ray tracing calculations, helped by the game's mix of SSR, cube maps and planar reflection methods. The world is so convincing due to light, depth, shadow and atmospheric scattering, which all aids the scale and photorealism. Dynamic weather returns, sandstorms blow in with lightning strikes and particles, along with rain, firework displays and more, which can happen in isolation or even during battle. Fluid and cloth simulation is even better with water, the black oil-like rivers that build from void outs or BT battles. Cloth wrapping around faces and mouths, skin, muscle and fat deformation is excellent, with some of the best skin and contact animation in real-time rendering. Detail extends to richer interiors and exteriors, vehicles, dense forests, town centres. Post effects are a key tool in all of this visual quality. Very pristine, with clean motion blur of a per pixel variety, which improves the action and cinematic aims. The camera is another element which swings out, allowing greater detail with wide shots or close to feel the strikes, with that Metal Gear Solid 5 slow-mo kicking in on the knockout strike or shot. Physics and inverse kinematics are also key here in the weight, momentum, movement and animation system, iterated on over the original. And what blows everything else out of the water though is the consistent quality level by and large, and the sheer wealth of locations, looks, characters, scale, both macro and micro, is industry leading. Motion, facial and more capture present the most convincing digital actors in games, and no rays were traced to bring you this visual feast. Eyeballs, eyelids, fingers, lips, skin, lighting, movement, nuance and emotion, it's all here and it's just impeccable, as is the art design, the cinematography, the assets and the locales. It's capped off with both a 30 and 60 FPS mode and using Decima Zone TAA to hit 4K or 1800p on PS5 and 4K for both on Pro. The DRS does appear to be enabled here to ensure a 60 FPS is maintained, which it does, and IQ in performance mode is probably the only chink in its visual armour, with the, it appears, checkerboard solution still having some sub-pixel jitter at times, a minor faux pas for that 16 millisecond refresh it consistently achieves, which it does on both. It is another evolution on the prior engine, as we have seen consistently throughout this list and even last year and the year before, but many aspects are drastically enhanced: texture, detail, polygon count, physics, but character rendering, skinning, rigging, animation and lighting is the single biggest increase here. It is absolutely top tier. It can cross Uncanny Valley due to the facebone rigs on occasion being a little too static and robotic. They look authentic, but they don't have the character and soul within. Eyes can also be weak at times with a lack of depth and occlusion, almost like Westworld Yul Brynner. It can ruin the illusion of humanity beyond the cyborg within. But as a technical, artistically and graphical treat, it is my undoubted and worthy winner, and considerably so, with the competition being a considerable way back, even that Doom number 2. And there endeth my list, but I just want to summarise the year of gaming in 2025 and also touch on some games I left off. Of the amount of remakes and remasters we saw again this year, Metal Gear Solid Delta was arguably the best looking, but it was just a PS2 port running underneath with new makeup applied, as I covered in my review. It was nice, but it felt dated due to the fact that the PS2 logic and single-core CPU overhead make it feel old, and a locked 60 FPS is only really possible on higher-end CPUs. Even my 5800X3D could dip below 60 at times. Bonkers, but visually okay. Silent Hill F was another that had promised, but felt and looked dated once I played it, with yet another UE5 generic title in many ways, a la Silent Hill 2, Mafia the Old Country, Outer Worlds 2, the horrendously optimised or lack thereof Borderlands 4 sums up much of the game and outputs this year that are not on my list. The engine is not inherently to blame, but the ease of access, blueprinting, off-the-shelf plug-and-play features like Lumen, Nanite, etc. in unskilled hands can be a noose around the game and the player's experience, and more so rushing things out nowhere close to gold ready and patching later, which was particularly rife this year. Looking at you, Capcom, but you weren't the only one. Now, this is fundamentally a publisher issue, but fundamentally it's a problem for all of us, including the developers that make the game. Now, big games from Sony, Nintendo and Ubisoft were very light and, by and large, not representative of only 2 or 3 years ago. Microsoft had more big hitters due to the amount they now own, but even then only Doom makes my list, and many others, including the new Call of Duty, were also very lackluster. And again, had their own problems in terms of the AMD FSR4, or at least the new version of Redstone. And this sums up the gaming industry right now, as per my video last year. The gaming bubble is, or even has, burst. The drop off in big AAA titles, the tech pushing ones in games anyway, is unquestionably lower. The amount we know is coming is not that big as previous years, and many of those are not even coming from American and even Western teams now. Crimson Desert looks and plays brilliantly, and it uses its own engine from the South Korean team Pearl Abyss. This is a highlight for me, as is Game Science's next Black Myth game, although that's not due next year. The Witcher 4 looks to be the most promising UE5 title on the horizon, but could be years away and is definitely a joint venture between CDP and Epic. But GTA 6 will be a phenomenon of epic proportions and looks to define this generation, and likely straddle the next also. I think my list next year will be all about the runner-up, but you never know. By and large, the shift to less games, smaller studios, I am happy about, and that is what I expected would happen, as per that video. But I think the hardware of Nvidia and future AMD GPUs will dictate how much path tracing becomes the new standard, as the production cost versus quality can be mitigated very well. But Doom The Dark Ages also shows how expensive it still is, even on the best of the best GPU hardware, and we are not seeing new generation GPUs in 2026 from anybody. So it all comes down to what Sony Worldwide Studios, Nintendo and potentially other smaller indie teams, and hopefully Microsoft Studios, to push that needle in 2026 on the graphical grunt we saw in 2025. So what did you think of my list then? Does it match yours? Totally disagree? Either or, please comment down below and let me know what you think. Subscribe if you have not, like the video and watch and read more across my channel and website. A happy 2026 to you all, and let's hope it brings some surprises on the gaming and hardware front, but stay tuned for all that here as it unfolds starting in January with CES 2026. But for now, I'm out. Enjoy the rest of the year and hopefully watch it here. I'll catch you on the next one.